Welcome into another episode of Betting the Pitch. I'm your host, the real_G Warner, and this is Betting the Pitch episode number 188. The Ochos are wild. We're going to go through the Europa League, the Europa Conference League. Try to go as much as I can in as much depth as possible because unfortunately, some of these teams are not on the schedule of teams that I watch every week. But I do feel like Europe's been very good to me lately, so I'm trying to keep that going. Appreciate all the support. If you're on YouTube, hit subscribe. If you're on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, please leave a 5-star review. I'll read them really if they're nice or mean. Don't care. Rip me if you want. I'll read them. If you're on Twitter, hit the follow button, the real_G Warner. If you're on StreamYard, I don't know if anyone goes there. Don't know if anyone uses it, but thank you for helping me get my beautiful face that no one wants to see onto Twitter. But with that said, you could listen to me and not see my face on any of the other places you could find podcasts. So I suggest looking there. Also, got to plug my Patreon. I think it's the best place to be, best value for your money. Certainly putting picks out on pregame regularly every night to be exact, but you get the whole shebang, all in a much more affordable area. So check out patreon.com. If you're listening or certainly paying for anything on pregame, you should definitely be looking there. Get everything you want, everything you could ask for, everything I put out there all goes through Patreon. So let's get in. Gonna have an ultimate best bet per usual. Gonna hope I remember to post it on Instagram because I keep forgetting before Thursday matches. But it's late night with the real_G Warner. I feel like it's an everyday thing now. Looking forward to getting some sleep at some point, but probably not happening till soccer is over this summer. All lines quoted in this podcast are courtesy of betonline.ag, my favorite place to get my bets down early. Reduced use it offered on almost every game you want to bet right up until game time. Please follow the link found in the podcast description to fund your account and use the promo code GW50 for 50% off. Or excuse me, not 50% off. You're getting 50% more of a match bonus up to $1,000. So make sure you get in on that. Clearly was not doing a great job multitasking as I try to get into my other computer because that's where I keep the ultimate best bets, and I gotta do it for the people. So yeah, as I mentioned, ultimate best bet, we're gonna come up with best bets for both of the two leagues. Surprisingly went with the conference league best bet from last week, and that was a winner. So gonna try to keep on doing the same stuff, getting the same type of results. I do feel like unders have been very good, a lot better in the European competitions because they actually have real defenses than in the domestic competitions. And I'm going to try my best to keep that in mind because the under mafia has been taking a lot of scalps lately, and it's been very unfortunate. But we don't worry about that today because we're going to go find some winners on the Thursday card. We'll start in the Europa League with Roma hosting Feyenoord. A pretty nothing match. Watched this one the first leg. Was thinking about betting Roma, but did not do it. Happy that I didn't because they went and lost. In terms of where the number was, so Feyenoord was a surprising favorite, but ended up coming through. I think Roma missed a penalty, if I remember correctly. I think they missed another one this weekend as well, but it was followed up and scored just to really grind my gears as much as possible. Over-under was only 2, though, so I think I ended up leaving that lean behind. Unfortunately, the number fell too far for me, but I think that was a winner because it was a 1-0 final. Now we head to the second leg in the Roman or Italian capital. Big spot for what should be a pretty big crowd. And I expect they'll be very supportive because seemingly they were this weekend, even though Jose Mourinho rotated like his entire side, yet still got a win over a good Udinese side that ended up falling behind. Really shady penalty, in my humble opinion, but they seem to always be, especially when they're on the other side, I'll admit. But the Udinese then missing a penalty themselves. I mean, just no one wants to score from the penalty spot, apparently. But anyway, not really the greatest, cleanest played game out there. I'll put it that way. Nor is this really the greatest, cleanest thing ever as I'm looking for where the heck. Okay, Feyenoord. There we go. So I was expecting do this similarly with the Champions League. I made lines for all the matches, both legs, before the first leg was staged, just to see kind of what would happen. Where the opinions would go. And initially I had Feyenoord. This is confusing. I had them as a 3/4 goal underdog on the road to Roma. Here, they're only half a goal. I had the over-under when I made it initially at 2.25, or excuse me, at 2.178. So a little bit below 2.25. The over is actually juiced a little bit more here at 2.25. So to make that less confusing, Feyenoord currently a half a goal underdog. All the juice on Roma at home. Over under is 2.25, juice to the over. So with the 1-0 aggregate lead, Feyenoord probably go on the road and are playing very competitive or conservatively. I would expect them to try to be competitive, but they're going to mostly be conservative and try to keep Roma from scoring. I don't necessarily think that that's going to be the hardest thing to do because Roma's offense has not been very good and the Roma defense has been great. So I'm very interested in the under 2.25 here. It's a little bit higher than I expected it to be. At least the juice is more on the over, and I would expect it to be more on the under. Go figure, and good luck seeing what happens with that when everything goes towards kickoff. Unfortunately, I feel like totals have been dropping like a rock really across everywhere. And which is really disappointing because it's ultimately making the 2.5s that I play that end on 2 only half bet wins, unfortunately. And then they get blown in the water and see 6 goals or something like that, mainly in stoppage time, it feels like, or that's usually a German thing. But definitely interested in Roma getting a win. I think they're more likely to advance to the better club, bigger club, but that's kind of not stepping out on a limb, I'll admit. And I got to say, in these competitions, I'm looking really to back the smaller clubs as underdogs because that's really my style ultimately. But I also feel there's a ton of value because the big names are rated so much better than the best teams in other leagues, which are really not, I wouldn't say just as competitive, but like can be. And I feel like Feyenoord have a very good chance to advance here. Lose by a single goal in regulation. They go to, wow, I'm gonna have to sneeze. Hopefully I just muted that. Maybe I didn't. I'm sorry if you just heard a sneeze. Oh man, my bad. Might be the first time that's happened, but here we go. Welcome to Late Night with the Real Underscore G Warner. Nothing that you would expect would happen. I mean, to finish that point, I think you want to back, especially later in these competitions, everyone is betting the big name teams, big name clubs. They've got a lot going on. A lot of different things are balancing, trying to finish in Champions League positions like Roma are next year in Serie A. And playing in the Europa League, certainly they get an automatic bid if they win the whole thing, but they got to get through the quarterfinals and then the semifinals and then win the finals. So that's a lot to ask. So I feel like we saw from a lot of the rotation this week that Italian sides basically were playing their best teams in Europa League or in Europa Conference League in case of Fiorentina really kind of played their same squad, but it's not really a great sign, I don't think. So I don't know that half of a goal is enough on Feyenoord right now. It might climb that 2.75 that I was expecting. I don't know necessarily that it will do that though. So I can't really guarantee that that will happen. So my biggest interest in this one is Feyenoord under 2.25. Going on the road. And currently two advanced numbers, Feyenoord minus 140, Roma plus 115. Let's see if we got these babies. I hope so. And more instead of just sneezing on camera when I think I'm muting it, apparently I'm not. So no movement from Feyenoord and Roma in really from when I was tracking it last time, but it flipped from Feyenoord plus 120 to Feyenoord now minus 140. That is a little bit of a difference, we'll say the least, to that one. I mean, that's what happens when you win 1-0 at home. But I think there's a good chance Roma overturn this. That plus 115 probably won't be around for too long. I don't think it's pretty juiced at the moment, but I mean, pretty big gap, 25 cents on a minus 140 favorite is gigantic. But if there's some value players out there, probably not looking at this one, but I would think that Roma have a very good chance to overturn this. But I feel like there's a very good chance it goes extra time at 1-0. Roma victory that will get you done when you're under. At 1-1, Feyenoord are advancing. At 2-1, it goes to extra time, and Roma will kill your over with that one with a 2-1 victory. But I just don't see a lot coming from the Feyenoord office. I feel like on the road they're gonna be very conservative. I keep making that mistake. So lean to under 2.25 in that one. Next, we'll move to Sevilla hosting Manchester United. Currently a 2-2 aggregate scoreline after Sevilla came back from a 2-0 deficit. Huge comeback. Might have boosted them into a win this weekend at Valencia, but also that might just be Valencia being a disaster. In terms of where I made this one, I love playing this game. So I was expecting Sevilla half a goal underdog at home with an over-under at 2.83. So between 2.75 and 3. And my total is fairly off. The side, Sevilla are a half a goal underdog, minus 122. So all the juice on that side. Maybe fall into a quarter thanks to Manchester United injuries. But we saw Bruno Fernandes play this weekend. So I imagine he's going to be available for this one because I think they still want to win this, guarantee themselves a trophy, but also want to make sure that they guarantee themselves a Champions League spot. Not that I don't think it's that tight in the Premier League, but nothing's done till it's done. Over under is 2.5, juice to the over, which does come along with the number I was putting out there, but certainly not 2 3/4. That takes a while to get there, I think. In terms of what I'm looking for in this one, though, Sevilla really have gone through multiple managers this year. Lopetegui didn't get any support. Still love the guy. I think he's awesome fit for Wolves. Was a great fit for Sevilla until they forgot what they were doing and really made some bad transfer moves, signings, and let people go that they had to, but didn't do a good job replacing. Then they bring in Jorge Sampaoli, who's just no one likes him or respects him. It seems it was weird that he left Marseille when they're doing so well. But maybe not that weird because it didn't seem to last very long at Sevilla, even though he was starting to move them away from the relegation zone. He's bringing in a lot of his players from Marseille and other places that I think were good for Sevilla, but ultimately weren't good enough to keep his job when his players are ripping up his notes and throwing him on the ground during matches. Nice job, Acuna. I think Sevilla are going to have a big crowd behind him. El Nervion was awesome when I went. Super hot day. Probably will be trending in that direction. It's not October, but in Andalusia, it gets very warm for sure. I think warmest temperature in all of mainland Europe. But Manchester United go on the road. They got to win here. They got to get a result to at least force extra time. I don't know necessarily that I trust them to do that. As much on the road, but then again, I feel like they set up pretty well to win wherever they play. Erik ten Hag has shown his worth and shown that he's able to do stuff. I do worry with Manchester United defense and their injury list, which is very long and exhausting. I do think that probably limits them as a road favorite. I still feel like they're way more likely to advance just because Sevilla have a ton of problems. I don't think Sevilla are really a team that can score goals. I mean, the goals they got this weekend against a really bad Valencia side on the road, sure, but they were crazy. And once, I guess the second goal is good, but then 2 own goals to equalize to Manchester United. Can't really see that much of that happening again. I think if anything, I'm looking towards a 2.5 total, which feels honestly a little low to me. I don't really believe in either of these offenses necessarily. I feel like Manchester United want to counterattack. Sevilla probably are wise enough to know that, though Mendilibar is going to play such a high line. I think if anything, I lean to over in this one, over 2.5. I just don't think it'll probably make my card. In terms of 2 advanced numbers, so we have Manchester United minus 190 favorite right now, which seems like that has dropped quite a bit. It was minus 450 last I tracked before these matches kicked off. And Sevilla only a plus 155 underdog. Nice to get that on a home team. Don't love the 35-cent juice split, but that I guess if there's some value and you think that Manchester United's injuries can really stack up, then maybe you play Sevilla there. Next, I'll go to Sporting Lisboa hosting Juventus in the capital of Portugal. In terms of my numbers, so I was expecting Sporting CP. So it's 1-0 Juventus lead in aggregate. They won 1-0 at home. Crazy goal, I believe, scored by a center back in the box off of a corner kick set piece type situation. I was expecting Sporting Club de Portugal to be a quarter goal underdog at home with the over-under just above 2. Currently, Sporting Lisboa are a quarter goal favorite at home. So definitely some value on Juventus there. Also, over-under is 2.25, juiced pretty heavily to the under, which I think makes sense because I had it at 2.07. Definitely doesn't feel like that number is close to mine at the moment, but certainly that's the way I lean. Like I said earlier, I'm trying to avoid the big name, big clubs because they are scary to play and there's very rarely any value on them in this tournament because unfortunately people don't know enough about Sporting Lisboa to really want to bet them, especially not on a wide market range, especially in the United States market where not a lot of people are betting soccer unless they're probably really into it. With that said, I do think Juventus is a far better team. They have, I guess, some questions with a lot of injury health concerns all across the roster, but there's a gigantic hole at goalkeeper for Sporting Lisboa. And I don't really know that I feel good enough. I mean, I guess I also lean under the 2.25 because I feel like Juve, they want to take 1-0 lead, which would put them 2-0 up on aggregate. You might see another goal when they're fully battening down the hatches. But I think that if Juve take a 1-0 lead, they are literally playing for anything to just, they might not even cross half court offensively anymore. I mean, of course they will, but ultimately I feel like they are in a position to defend like crazy with a 1-0 lead in league play. So they certainly would do it in this competition, which would translate to a 2-0 aggregate lead. Sporting Lisboa, they do have some attacking talent, certainly. I just don't know that I really believe in it too much, especially against a Juve team that is very deep defensively. They've struggled to keep their attackers healthy, but they ultimately have a lead. I feel like they are going to want to counterattack this whole time, probably from the start. They might go forward a little bit more so earlier, but I feel like they'll start pulling the reins. Allegri will sooner rather than later and trying to get them into as defensive a shape as possible. Probably a really ugly match to see. Definitely wanted to see the first leg with Sporting Lisboa trying to get a result on the road. But I think it's going to be a really boring match. So I lean to the road dog, Juventus. I feel like they have a better offense, better defense, better team. Certainly are fighting the crowd, but I don't know necessarily that I agree with them being an underdog despite Sporting Lisboa needing the goal to turn over and equalize on aggregate. But I also like betting against teams that need things and lean to under 2.25. I think Sporting Lisboa then go into defensive shape if they tie. Certainly want to try to win, but they need a second goal to even get to a half a bet winner. 2-0 either way will win you half a bet. So I just don't really see fireworks in this one. I don't really think that's going to happen necessarily. When again go down to the futures and two advanced numbers, Juventus currently a minus 245 favorite, climbed from minus 190 where it closed. I feel like it probably should be bigger than that. It's a little different because they're on the road, of course, but I feel like that's a pretty seismic change, especially taking a 1-0 lead off the first leg. Maybe there was higher expectations that they'd win by more, but like, have you been paying attention to Juventus this year? They rotated quite a bit this weekend. Were pretty poor performance. I'll put it that way. I think they lost this weekend. I can't remember exactly who they played, but to Sassuolo, yes, on the road. Sassuolo's been playing really well as long as their keeper wasn't giving away goals in the 95th minute with 4 minutes added on. But I'll leave that one to the side, hopefully, and never think about it again. Just kidding, impossible. Next, I'll move to Saint-Gilloise, a Belgian side hosting Bayer Leverkusen from Germany. Leverkusen playing some of the best football in Germany. I think you could say that with both the teams at the top really stumbling in any sort of direction. But Leverkusen have a bunch of balls in the air right now. They're trying to win everything they can. I think they went out of the Pokal really early, probably 2 managers ago with Seoane that was still in place, if I remember correctly. But ultimately, they're trying to finish in Champions League spot. I think they know that they're a pretty big underdog to win this competition. Not impossible, but could be done. And they certainly got a really good draw with the Belgian side at this point. I was expecting Union Saint-Gilloise to be a 3/4 goal underdog at home. First leg was 1-1 on aggregate. So even no way goals, everything's going to get decided here. First number I saw was Union Saint-Gilloise, a half a goal underdog. So that seems a little bit respectful of the home team, though they deserve it. They got through Union Berlin, really a team above Bayer Leverkusen in the Bundesliga right now. You could argue whether that's fully like based on talent. Certainly isn't. There's a big discrepancy there, but means something to me at least. Over under is 2.5. I was guessing 2.5 myself. I figured I have it slightly above 2.5, my number, but this one's juiced to the over, almost all of the juice on the over. And I think that speaks to anytime Bayer Leverkusen are playing. I'm not interested in playing unders with them because they don't really try to play off anything but offense. I don't think they play defense at all. They have big problems there. Saint-Gilloise, they're kind of probably play defensively and try to keep this as low scoring as possible and try to get a breakaway on a counter of some sort or set piece. They're probably going to play exactly what Union Berlin did in this competition. They were somehow better than them in 2 legs at doing it. Credit them for that. I don't know necessarily. I don't have the rivalry stats of Leverkusen versus Union Berlin in front of me, but I feel like that would tell a little bit. If Union have played really well against Leverkusen, then it probably gives Saint-Gilloise a little bit more of a sticking factor. I mean, going 1-1 on the road at Leverkusen also was very useful, I think. Why don't we just pull out and see FC Union? Let's see if we can find I'll just use my other computer because I feel like that's going to take way too long to figure out. FC Union Leverkusen. And then we'll come back to that if there's something meaningful there. Well, Leverkusen won 5-0 on November 6th, so that's not a great sign. Though that does seem like a massacre, and probably not a lot of those have happened, to say the least. Sheesh, that is a blowout though. So in terms of where to go with this one, I really don't love unders with Leverkusen. I'll put it that way. I've already said that. I don't love underdogs in high scoring matches. 2.5 is a pretty low total, but I think that's the tug of war between a Leverkusen offense, who's so strong, and a Saint-Gilloise defense that's going to be trying to be as strong as possible and try to limit Leverkusen as much as they can. I do feel like if you like Saint-Gilloise, you probably like under. Doesn't really sound terrible to me to back Saint-Gilloise. I think I'd rather play the side than the total. But at the same time, I don't know that that's really going to be on my card. I do love home dogs, though. It's a very juiced half of a goal right now. At a quarter, I think it's not enough for me. I'd want an extra time berth to be a full unit winner. So you have it for right now. Certainly don't think it's a bad idea. I'm not sure it'll be on my card, though, but think about it and see what happens with Leverkusen injuries and all sort of things that pop up, because ultimately they're a Diaby and Frimpong team right now. And if there's any concerns there, I always wonder about the strikers and how they score goals up top. But Saint-Gilloise are going to sit back and try to restrict space from the speedy wingers. And that's worked very well for a lot of teams that have played Leverkusen over the years. In terms of two advanced numbers, for this kicked off, at Saint-Gilloise at a plus 235 underdog, 1-3 for Leverkusen minus 300 to advance. Currently, we have Leverkusen minus 175. So that's fallen a fair amount, especially since Leverkusen weren't able to get anything better than a draw at home in the first leg. But I think that will probably not be good enough to make my ultimate best bet list, I got to say. I think my favorite bet there, I mean, I do like Feyenoord under 2.25, but I got to say, I like both side and total on the Juve match. I think there's more safety in Juve under 2.25. So I'll make that my best bet for this episode. But really, I feel like there's some good value there. And I feel like these competitions have been, I never would call them easy to bet. Nothing in this world is easy to bet, but I feel like they've been a little bit more straightforward than you'd expect. And if you found teams that were playing well, against teams that might not take this competition as seriously, I think that was a really good moneymaker. Unfortunately, I do think at this point in the tournament, everyone is pretty serious about what they're doing right now. Next, I'll go and we'll move to the Europa Conference League. So just a reminder, Juve under 2.25 is my best bet from Europa League. But we'll go to Thursday. Don't have two advanced numbers, so this will be a little bit more brief. AZ Alkmaar from Netherlands hosting Anderlecht from Belgium. Currently AZ, I believe, are 2-0 hole, if I am not mistaken. AZ, so first leg went 2-0 Anderlecht. I have it both ways. Let me see. Anderlecht, AZ. Yeah, Anderlecht won 2-0. So I need to do a little bit better about my managing of my data. Anderlecht 2-0 victory at home now are going to go on the road and try to play as defensively as possible. They had some bigger names, I think, in their squad, and I played them a little bit during these competitions in Europe this year. Don't think I had great success. I think I had more success than Anderlecht last year. But anyway, Anderlecht with a big 2-0 victory in the first leg. They're going to play very conservatively. When I made my number for this round, I was expecting Anderlecht to be a half a goal underdog with a total at 2.37. We have Anderlecht a 3/4 goal underdog and the over-under at 2.5. So, I feel like really this match is going to determine who gets the first goal. If it's Anderlecht, it's probably over, and you probably see a lot of goals coming in because AZ will have to push forward. If AZ get the first goal, then I think Anderlecht get even more conservative. And then AZ Alkmaar are going to try to score, but will have trouble doing so against a sunken back line. And I think 1-0. So I lean under here. I'm not sure that's my there's not a huge stamp of approval on that one, I'll admit, but I do feel like there's some decent, well-known players in the Anderlecht team, at least from when I was watching them before. Haven't checked in on them in a little while. Moving on, next we'll go to, and these are early round of matches, I guess, starting at 11:45. I think all the Europa Leagues were later, but we can check on that as well. Fiorentina currently, they won the first leg 4-1 at Lech Poznan in Poland. So then they played a pretty big side this weekend, I think, knowing that they can kind of rest or rotate for the second leg. I don't feel like managers ever take this match as casually as they probably should. I feel like, I mean, Diogo Jota has never been the same ever since Jurgen Klopp played him in a meaningless Champions League group stage match. I hope that some of these managers are smarter about that. I mean, you certainly worry about momentum and things of that nature, but the 4-1 lead against the Polish side, I mean, Fiorentina should be like home, like dried and dust, like whatever the phrases in English terms are, like home and hosed. I mean, like they should be whatever, fresh out the shower, ready to go, whatever that means. And I think I was expecting Lech Poznan to be a 1-goal underdog on the road here because they have so much to fight for. Over and I made 2.64. We got over under at 2 3/4, very juicy the over. It looks like that's climbing to 3. And Lech Poznan a 1.5-goal underdog. So I can't say that I was really that accurate with my guess there, I'll admit. Probably makes sense because it's really hard to predict. I think the big outcomes when there's such a discrepancy in talent. I don't think that I do like Fiorentina unders, I'll admit, but I don't think this one is really on my list or even one to consider. So I think I'll move on now to the nightcaps of the Conference League. And that's Nice hosting Basel. I believe it was a 2-2 draw at Basel. So a lot to play for in this one. Should be pretty interesting to watch. Nice with a really fully rotated side, playing a bunch of guys number 37 through 40 something. That tells me that they're young kids, and some of them might not have even signed pro contracts, but didn't go well for them at a relegation fighting Brest, who really needed a victory and got a very big one. But Nice, I was guessing that they would be, of course, why would I transfer that information over? Of course, no reason. That would be insane. I was expecting Nice to be a 0.5-goal underdog. That's what I was expecting. Or excuse me, a 0.5-goal favorite at home, which now that I think about it, seems very small, but I can only go with what was in the wrong page of my Excel spreadsheets. Currently over under I had a 2.37 as well. The side here, Basel a +1 underdog on the road. And juice is pretty split, a little bit more to Nice actually as the home team. Over under is 2 3/4, very juicy the under, which makes sense because that's way above the 2.5 and even into the 2 3/4 number. With a 2-2 aggregate first leg, I feel like Nice are going to be the dominant team here at home. Basel likely go on the road as a small Swiss side to try to keep it as tight as possible. I mean, I hope that Urs Fischer would take some time out of his work to help train these guys from his old club, but that's probably not something that's realistic in this world. Union Berlin are fighting for Champions League. I doubt they'd give any time away to anything, but God, Urs Fischer in this matchup would be perfect because I don't necessarily believe Nice have been so good ever since Didier Degas took over, but like ultimately they're not a great offense team that you really want to be too afraid of. I feel like their midfield's been good and they've done a really good job of restricting their opponents from scoring. And then when they score one, they can get a second one because the other team has to push out. And that's kind of how the offense and really success of Nice has kind of flourished this year. I don't know enough about Basel to really believe that 1 goal is enough for me to want to play. I do think if you like them, you probably want to go under 2 3/4. Just because I feel like there's a good chance that Basel hang around here, that Nice are balancing a bunch of competitions. They're a young team, the young manager, and not a lot of sureties going on in that program right now, or that club. I'm going to be doing some research on Basel and see what I can come up with. I don't know that I have enough of it just yet, though. Over under lean to 2 3/4, lean to that under. That's probably the safest of the plays. If you need to play in that one, I'll probably go under 2 3/4. So it's very juiced right now. I don't see a huge difference between that 2 3/4 and 2.5. Last but not least, I'll go to West Ham and Ghent. Had a bet on the under in the first round. Wow. Ghent keeper, LOL, got bailed out, but then give another bad goal. I mean, there's a lot of really bad things to see. West Ham with a huge comeback to get a 2-2 draw after a 2-0 deficit to Arsenal was massive for them staying in the league, but they are still trying to fight to stay in the Premier League. Somehow they're in the Europa Conference League quarterfinals, but that I think speaks to the level of the competition. If the 16th placed Premier League side is going this far in this competition, I mean, is it even worth it? But I made Ghent a 3/4 goal underdog here on the road, over under at 2.18 with a 1-1, I guess equal on aggregate scoreline coming in here. And I guess I'm looking at these numbers for the first time. So Ghent, they are a 3/4 goal underdog, but they have all the juice at home on the West Ham side. That might mean this climbs to 1. That +1 gets me interested, as well as the 2.5. Juice the under, but 2.5 total. I don't really see a lot changing in this matchup. I feel like West Ham were a little bit more, I think they deferred more on the road at Ghent in Belgium than they will at home. But like West Ham's offense has not really delivered for years now. I mean, they've been a set piece, like counterattacking, but really set piece, big body type of team that score a goal that way. Ghent, I think, had a lot more possession, which is pretty disappointing / depressing, embarrassing for West Ham going on the road and treating Ghent the way they did. That's, to me, just a total Moyes factor. I imagine they come out a little bit more aggressively. But if that pushes the Ghent side to +1, I like that even more. I don't know at 3/4 yet I'm ready, but like ultimately getting like half of a bet covered on a single goal loss, I think Ghent are very competitive here, and I really like their chances. So I like that 3/4 of a goal. I want to wait for one. And I really like that over under 2.5. And I think I'll make that my best bet for the Europa Conference League. I don't, I mean, as anyone who listens to this knows, I love underdogs and unders. Pretty good combination on that one of really being against a team that's favored. I prefer it more on the road if I could have, but that's what we got last time with West Ham closing, I believe, a 1/4 goal favorite on the road. Yeah. A little more juice on Ghent, I think, than expected, but I don't believe in West Ham whatsoever. I'm gonna be betting against them until I can't no more, pretty much. So before we get to the ultimate best bet, I'm going to go through and just plug some things. Get in. If you're on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button. If you're on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, please leave a 5-star review. It means a lot for getting me up there in the search bars. And ultimately, the more I get, trying to get more users onto my Patreon, speaking of, to then get some sort of Discord going so that we can all share our leans, our ideas, our interests, and figure out how to save each other money while, of course, making each other some money too. What else do I have to plug? Still have Patreon stuff. Just said that. Still have pregame stuff coming out. So many words, the same starting letters. Pregame stuff coming out each night. Feel free if you want to stick around there. But I'm telling you, there's much better value on Patreon. I would highly recommend checking that out. I have a decent customer base over there, and I feel like more the merrier. It'll only get better and give me more reason to make more of these videos and stay up and really never sleep. But I think it's time. So this is Betting the Pitch number 188 with the _G Warner on Instagram and Twitter. And for my ultimate best bet, I'm going to pull out one of my favorites from each of the Europa Conference and Europa regular leagues on Thursday. In the Europa League, I'm going to go with the Juventus under 2.25. And in the Europa Conference League, I'll go Ghent. A 2.5 is the total there. I'll go under there as well. For my best bet, I think I just like Juventus better as better of a chance to go on the road and get a victory, more so than I like Ghent from Belgium. I think Juve, they're a team that plays the manager who wants to take a 1-0 lead and then sit on that lead and not really do anything more. With a 1-0 lead on aggregate, I think that also puts that in a much better place that once Juve score a goal, they're going to lock up shop and throw away the key. With that 2.25, not as much value as 2.5. But I still feel like I'm shooting for winners here, and it lands on 2. So be it. You win half a unit. Can't go broke taking a profit. So play Juventus under 2.25 for my best bet. And that'll do it for this episode number 188, Betting the Pitch. Thank you if you've been with me for 188 episodes without missing one, please shout me out. I love you if you have. If you missed a few, I get it, happens. But trying to finish this year strong. I'm still trying to update my records. There's just so many matches, so many games, everything going on in life, in this world. But taxes got in yesterday, or whatever day it was. So we'll see how far we can get and try to win some money on Thursday. So thanks for joining. We'll be back here, regular scheduled programming with a MLB pod for pregame on Thursday night into Friday, covering probably the whole weekend as we're doing that now. Of course, the Betting the Pitch will come back for the weekend as well. And let's find some winners because it's time to win some money. And that'll do it for this episode. Thanks for tuning in, and I will talk to you tomorrow. I'm real quick, but we'll talk to you tomorrow.